The camera was already rolling when my daughter called me a loser. I watched the red light blink on her phone, mounted on that ridiculous tripod she carried everywhere, and I knew this Mother's Day lunch was about to become content for her precious blog. Samantha had that look in her eyes, the one she got when she was hunting for viral moments, when real life mattered less than likes and shares. "Happy Mother's Day, loser," she said, her voice dripping with performative sweetness that her 200,000 followers would eat up. She panned the camera across the restaurant table, lingering on my clearance rack cardigan, my unmanicured nails, the simple silver chain I'd worn for 20 years. James, her husband, didn't even look up from his phone, probably checking the analytics on their cafe's Instagram page, measuring success in hearts and comments, while their actual business crumbled behind the filtered photos. I'd raised this girl, worked 3 jobs to put her through college, while her father drank himself into an early grave. I'd sewn her prom dress by hand, stayed up nights helping with term papers, sacrificed everything so she could have the life I never did. And this was my reward: public humiliation served with a side of mimosas and eggs Benedict. But here's what Samantha didn't know. I'd been planning this moment for 6 months. "That's really clever, sweetheart," I said, reaching into my purse. My hand was steady. I'd practiced this in front of my bathroom mirror a dozen times, perfecting the calm, almost pleasant expression. "I actually brought you something today. Consider it a late wedding gift." I pulled out the envelope. Thick, legal-sized, the kind that promises trouble. I'd paid extra for the premium paper, the kind you couldn't tear accidentally. This deserved substance. Samantha's eyes narrowed. She was smart enough to recognize danger when it came in manila packaging. "What's this?" "Open it later, preferably with James and his parents present." I stood, smoothing my cardigan, with the same methodical care I'd used to destroy their entire world. "You might want to explain to your husband why his salary just disappeared, why his parents are about to lose their house, and why every business loan they've taken out is being called in immediately." The restaurant went quiet, not movie quiet, real quiet, the kind where you can hear someone's fork scrape against porcelain 2 tables over. "What are you talking about?" James finally looked up, his perfectly groomed beard unable to hide the sudden paleness in his face. "I'm talking about consequences." I placed the envelope on the table between the mimosa glasses and the overpriced brunch plates. "I'm talking about the fact that for the last 18 months, I've been the silent partner funding your entire operation. The cafe expansion? My money. The down payment on your house? My money. James's parents' mortgage when they were about to default? Also my money." Samantha's finger hovered over the record button. She was calculating. I could see it, trying to figure out if this was good content or a disaster she needed to hide. "You're insane," she said, but her voice cracked on the last syllable. "No, sweetheart, I'm done." I picked up my purse, checked my watch with deliberate slowness. "The lawyers will be in touch. And Samantha, you might want to check your blog stats in about 6 hours. I think you'll find them very interesting." I walked out of that restaurant with my head high, leaving behind a daughter who'd forgotten where she came from, and a son-in-law who'd never bothered to ask questions about free money. The May sunshine felt warm on my face. It felt like justice. The other diners watched me leave. I could feel their eyes, their curiosity, their judgment. Let them look. I'd spent 53 years worrying about what other people thought. I was done with that too. 6 months earlier, I'd been a different woman, still quiet, still overlooked, but not yet weaponized. The transformation started the day I found Samantha's blog post titled, "10 Signs Your Mother is Holding You Back." I'd been number 7. She dresses like she shops at garage sales because she has no self-respect. The post had 47,000 likes. 47,000 people had agreed that I was an embarrassment. I sat in my small living room, the one I'd worked overtime shifts to pay for, and something inside me shifted. Not broke. Breaking implies damage. This was more like a door unlocking, revealing rooms I hadn't known existed. I'd spent 53 years being good, being quiet, being grateful for crumbs. I'd raised 2 children alone after their father decided whiskey was more important than family. I'd worn second-hand clothes so they could have new ones. I'd skipped meals so they could eat. I'd sacrificed my youth, my dreams, my entire identity to make sure they had opportunities I'd never gotten. And this was how Samantha saw me, as content, as a punchline, as something to be ashamed of. My son David had moved to Oregon 3 years ago and barely called. But Samantha, she'd stayed close enough to bleed me dry while mocking me publicly. She'd never asked about my life, never wondered how a woman who shopped at garage sales always seemed to have money when she needed it. I'd inherited money from my aunt 2 years ago. Not millions, but enough. $380,000 that I'd kept quiet about, invested carefully, and used to help my children without them knowing. I'd believed in silent support, in being the foundation they could build on without having to acknowledge. I'd been a fool. That night, I opened my laptop and started researching. If Samantha's world was built on social media, then that's where it would fall. I learned about influencer culture, about engagement rates and algorithm manipulation. I studied her blog, her Instagram, her TikTok. I learned the architecture of her digital empire. And I found the cracks. Samantha's entire brand was built on authenticity. The young wife building a beautiful life with her entrepreneur husband, sharing honest moments and real struggles, except none of it was real. Her candid photos were staged with professional lighting. Her spontaneous videos were scripted. Her genuine reviews were paid promotions she never disclosed. But more than that, I found the financial records. James had added me as a co-signer on his business loans 2 years ago, back when the cafes were failing the first time. He'd needed my credit score, my signature, my promise to cover his debts if he couldn't. I'd signed because Samantha asked, because I wanted to help. Now those signatures meant I owned 49% of his business. I'd checked with 3 different lawyers to be sure. The paperwork was sloppy, rushed, done by a friend of a friend trying to save money. But it was legal, and it gave me power James had forgotten I possessed. I spent the next month making phone calls, quiet calls, from my kitchen table, while Samantha posted about her perfect life, and James pretended his cafes weren't hemorrhaging money. I called the investment group James had pitched last year, the one that had seemed interested but wanted more financial transparency. I provided it, real numbers, not the inflated projections James had been showing them. They pulled out within a week. I called the food blogger Samantha had insulted at a networking event, calling her past her prime and irrelevant. Turned out she remembered. She was very interested in my story about staged authenticity and undisclosed sponsorships. I called my friend Patricia's son, the one who worked the morning shift at James's main cafe location. He'd been complaining for months about delayed wages, about cheap coffee beans that customers were starting to notice, about the minor food poisoning incident they'd covered up rather than reported. I took notes. I gathered evidence. I built my case like a prosecutor preparing for trial. And then I planned the Mother's Day lunch, the performance, the moment Samantha would realize that content has consequences. I rehearsed my lines, practiced my expressions, timed my exit. I wanted it perfect, not out of vanity, but because this was the only chance I'd get. You don't expose your hand twice. The night before Mother's Day, I barely slept, not from nerves. I was past nervous, but from anticipation, from the knowledge that tomorrow everything would change, that I would stop being the woman things happened to and become the woman who made things happen. I laid out my outfit carefully, the clearance rack cardigan Samantha had mocked, the simple chain, the practical shoes. I wanted her to see me exactly as she'd always seen me, right up until the moment I revealed I'd been playing a different game entirely. The week after Mother's Day, I watched the dominoes fall from the comfort of my living room. First came the food blogger's post. Patricia's son had given me photos, time-stamped images of moldy coffee beans, expired milk products, the walk-in cooler that hadn't worked properly in months. The blogger posted them alongside testimonials from 3 former employees about wage theft and unsafe conditions. James's Instagram went from 45,000 followers to 32,000 in 3 days. The comments section became a war zone. I got sick from their downtown location last month. They made me work off the clock. The coffee tastes like dirt water. The health department showed up on Tuesday. I didn't call them, didn't need to. Enough former employees and angry customers had filed complaints that an inspection was inevitable. They found violations, not enough to shut the cafes down immediately, but enough to require expensive remediation and follow-up inspections. James posted a statement on Instagram. "We take these allegations seriously and are committed to addressing any concerns." The comments tore him apart. "You're only sorry you got caught. I've been trying to get my last paycheck for 6 weeks. Committed to addressing concerns, you're committed to damage control." Then Samantha's world started cracking. The influencer ethics blogger I'd contacted, a woman named Jennifer, who ran a small but respected platform about transparency in social media, posted a detailed breakdown of Samantha's undisclosed sponsorships. She'd done her homework, matched up product placements with bank deposits from Samantha's business account that I'd provided access to as a co-signer on James's business loans. The post was professional, factual, devastating. When influencers fail to disclose paid partnerships, they're not just breaking FTC guidelines, they're breaking trust with the people who support them. Jennifer included screenshots of conversations between Samantha and brands, emails where Samantha explicitly agreed not to use the disclosure hashtags because it ruins the aesthetic. She showed the math. Samantha had made over $150,000 in undisclosed sponsored content over 2 years. Samantha's response was to delete comments and block critics, which only made it worse. Screenshots spread across Twitter and Reddit. Someone made her a case study on a marketing podcast about influencer fraud. Her follower count started dropping, slowly at first, then faster, as the algorithms detected decreased engagement and stopped promoting her content. I watched it all unfold while drinking tea on my couch, the same couch she'd called tragic in a blog post about outdated furniture. I felt nothing. Not satisfaction, not guilt, not vindication, just a calm certainty that this was necessary. But I wasn't satisfied yet. The financial destruction was still coming. James called me on Thursday afternoon. I let it go to voicemail. He called again an hour later. Then Samantha called, her voice shrill with panic. "What did you do? What the hell did you do?" "I exercised my rights as a business partner," I said calmly. "Did you open the envelope yet?" "You can't do this. You can't just take over the cafes." "I'm not taking them over, sweetheart. I'm calling in my investment. The loans I co-signed? I have the right to demand immediate repayment if I feel the business is being mismanaged. And those food safety violations constitute mismanagement." I paused, let her hear the smile in my voice. "Your husband should have read the fine print." She was crying now, ugly crying, the kind she'd never post online. "We'll lose everything." "Yes," I agreed. "You will. Just like I lost my dignity every time you made me a punchline. Just like I lost the daughter I raised when you decided followers mattered more than family." "Mom, please. We can fix this. I'll delete the posts about you. I'll apologize." "I don't want your apology, Samantha. I want you to understand what it feels like to be powerless, to watch your life fall apart while someone you trusted destroys it piece by piece." I hung up, blocked her number, went back to my tea. The silence felt good. For years I'd been available, always answering, always accommodating, always ready to help or support or enable. Now I was unavailable. and the freedom of it was intoxicating. The real work happened behind the scenes, in lawyers' offices and bank conference rooms. I'd retained Daniel Hoffman, a corporate attorney who specialized in small business disputes. He was expensive, methodical, and absolutely relentless. When I showed him the paperwork James had signed, his eyes lit up like Christmas morning. "This is a mess," he said, flipping through the loan documents. "But it's your mess now. You have significant leverage." We filed a demand for repayment on all outstanding loans, $287,000 in total. The cafes couldn't pay it. They were barely making payroll. So we moved to the next phase, forcing a sale of assets. James's parents had guaranteed some of the loans with their house. Nice people, actually, but they'd raised a son who thought appearances mattered more than reality. When the bank sent foreclosure notices, they called me, begging, "Nina, please. We didn't know James was struggling this badly. We can't lose our home." I'd prepared for this call. "Tell James to sign over his share of the business to me, complete ownership. When I sell the cafes, I'll clear your mortgage. You'll keep your house." His mother was crying. "And James? Samantha? What happens to them?" "They learn to live within their means, like the rest of us." There was a long pause. "You've changed, Nina. You used to be so kind." "I'm still kind," I said, "just not to people who mistake kindness for weakness." 2 days later, James signed. He didn't have a choice. The alternative was bankruptcy that would take his parents down with him. I now owned 3 failing cafes with terrible reputations and mounting health code violations. But I had a plan for those too. Daniel helped me navigate the next steps. We brought in a restaurant consultant who confirmed what I suspected. The locations were good, the equipment was salvageable, but the brand was poisoned. The best move was to sell to someone who could completely rebrand. In the meantime, I had to manage the businesses. I hired a temporary manager for each location, people who actually knew how to run a cafe. I had them implement proper food safety protocols, fix the equipment, upgrade the coffee beans. It cost money, but it was necessary to make the businesses sellable. The employees who'd been complaining about conditions were grateful for the changes. Several of them asked if I'd keep the cafes long term. "You actually care about doing things right," one of them said. But I didn't want to run cafes. I wanted to sell them and move on with my life. While the business drama unfolded, Samantha's social media empire continued its spectacular collapse. Jennifer, the ethics blogger, had done more than just expose the undisclosed sponsorships. She'd connected with other micro-influencers Samantha had burned over the years. People she'd collaborated with and then badmouthed smaller creators she'd stolen content from. Brands she'd promised exposure to and then ghosted. They all came forward. Each story was small on its own, but together they painted a picture of someone ruthlessly ambitious and carelessly cruel. Someone who'd built success on other people's backs and never looked down. One story particularly stuck with me. A young woman named Emily had collaborated with Samantha on a series of home organization posts 2 years ago. Emily had done all the work, the organizing, the styling, the photography. Samantha had promised to credit her and share her smaller account with Samantha's larger audience. Instead, Samantha posted everything without credit, blocked Emily when she complained, and when Emily tried to tell her side on her own account, Samantha's followers attacked her for clout chasing. Emily had nearly quit social media entirely. Now Emily was getting her vindication. She posted the behind-the-scenes footage, the text messages, the proof of her work. Samantha's followers finally saw the truth. The algorithm gods of social media are fickle. Once they turn on you, there's no coming back. Samantha's engagement rate dropped below 1%. Brands stopped responding to her pitches. Her squad of fellow influencers quietly unfollowed her. She tried pivoting, posted a tearful video about learning and growing, about mistakes and doing better. But she couldn't help herself. Even in her apology, she was performing. The lighting was perfect. Her mascara ran artfully. She'd positioned the camera to catch her good side. People saw through it. The comments were brutal. "This is as fake as everything else you post. You're only sorry you got caught. Maybe try getting a real job." I watched that video 3 times, looking for some sign of the girl I'd raised, the one who used to cry over sad commercials and bring home stray cats. But that girl was gone, buried under layers of filters and false narratives. Or maybe she'd never really existed. Maybe I'd just been too close to see the truth. Maybe the daughter I thought I'd raised had always been a performance too, just one targeted at me instead of strangers online. The final blow to Samantha's online presence came from an unexpected source. One of her former friends, another lifestyle blogger, posted a video compilation of Samantha's authentic moments side by side with the reality. Candid breakfast shots that took 45 minutes to stage. Spontaneous dance videos that required 12 takes. Natural, no-makeup selfies that involved 20 minutes of natural-looking makeup application. It went viral. Actually viral, not influencer pretending viral. 2 million views in 24 hours. Samantha became a meme, a symbol of everything people hated about fake authenticity. Her blog, her business, her carefully constructed identity, all of it crumbled, and I watched from the sidelines, neither celebrating nor mourning, just observing the natural consequences of building a life on lies. By late June, I was ready for the final phase. The cafes were bleeding less money now, thanks to proper management and genuine improvements. The health department had completed follow-up inspections and lifted some of the restrictions. Customer reviews were slowly improving as people noticed the better coffee and cleaner facilities. But the brand was still tainted. James's name, his Instagram presence, the lingering association with the food poisoning incident, and wage theft allegations, it all hung over the businesses like a cloud. I put all 3 locations up for sale as a package deal. Within 2 weeks, I had a buyer, a local restaurant group that wanted to rebrand them as sandwich shops. They saw the potential in the locations and the improvements I'd made. They paid enough to clear James's debts, cover his parents' mortgage, return my initial investment, and leave me with a modest profit of $65,000. Not the fortune I'd put into the cafes originally, but enough to feel like justice. I could have kept them, could have hired new management, and rebuilt the reputations under my own name. Daniel even suggested it. "You've done the hard work already," he said. "You could make good money from these locations." But I didn't want to be in the cafe business. I wanted closure. I wanted to sell the physical reminder of my children's failure and move on with my life. The sale closed on a Tuesday in July. I sat in the attorney's office signing papers while James sat across from me, looking like he'd aged 5 years in 2 months. His beard was unkempt. His clothes were rumpled. The veneer of success had finally cracked, revealing the insecurity underneath. "I don't understand why you did this," he said when the lawyers left to process the paperwork. "We're family." "Family doesn't publicly humiliate each other for content," I replied. "Family doesn't take help and then mock the person helping them. Family doesn't forget where they came from." "Samantha's devastated. She's had to get a regular job. She's working retail." "Good. Maybe she'll learn something about the real world." I signed the last paper, slid it across the desk. "And maybe you'll learn that business requires actual work, not just Instagram posts." He stood to leave, then paused at the door. "You know what the worst part is? We really believed you'd always just take it. That you'd keep being the quiet, supportive mum who never complained." "I was that mum," I said. "Right up until the moment you two forgot I was also a person who deserved respect. Was it worth it? Destroying your relationship with your daughter?" "I didn't destroy it," I said calmly. "She did. I just stopped pretending everything was fine." After he left, I sat alone in that conference room for 20 minutes. Daniel had gone to file the papers. The office was quiet. Through the window, I could see people walking past on the street, busy people, purposeful people, people living their lives without performing them for an audience. I felt lighter. The weight I'd been carrying, the responsibility for my adult children's choices, the need to keep them happy and successful, the obligation to sacrifice myself for their benefit, it was gone. Not because I'd stopped loving them, but because I'd finally understood that love without boundaries was just enablement. I didn't go after them with cruelty. That's what they never understood. I went after them with consequences. Every action I took was legal, documented, justified. I called in loans I had legal rights to call in. I exposed business practices that should have been exposed. I provided information that was true and relevant to public interest. I never lied about them, never fabricated evidence, never tried to hurt them beyond the natural results of their own actions coming to light. I never tried to ruin them personally. I just stopped protecting them from their own choices. By August, the dust had settled into a new normal. James was working for his father-in-law's plumbing business, learning what actual work looked like. He started at the bottom, helping with supply runs, cleaning equipment, doing the grunt work nobody wanted. His father-in-law was a hard man but fair, the kind who believed in earning respect through effort. James's parents kept their house but downsized their lifestyle. They cancelled the country club membership, sold the second car, started shopping at discount grocery stores instead of the organic market. They were angry with me at first, but then they started seeing the truth about what their son had been hiding from them. His mother called me in late August. "I owe you an apology," she said. "We enabled James just like you enabled Samantha. We thought we were helping, but we were just preventing him from growing up." "We all do what we think is right at the time," I said. "The important thing is recognizing when it stops being right." Samantha's blog had lost its momentum, and her Instagram had become a barren space of outdated posts with comments disabled. She had taken a job as an assistant manager at a boutique clothing store downtown, handling customers and inventory instead of filters and followers. Patricia reported that she'd seen Samantha at the grocery store, looking tired but somehow more real. "She smiled at me," Patricia said. "Not that big influencer smile, but a real one, small and genuine." I didn't know what to do with that information. Part of me wanted to reach out, to check on her, to fall back into the pattern of being the supportive mother who fixed things. But I knew that reaching out now would undo everything. She needed to figure herself out without my interference. My son David called me in September. He'd heard everything secondhand, through family gossip and social media drama. "Mum, what happened? Samantha's saying you destroyed her life." "I stopped funding it," I corrected. "There's a difference." We talked for 2 hours. Really talked, maybe for the first time in years. He asked about my life, my plans, what I wanted now that I wasn't busy supporting everyone else. It felt strange being asked, being seen as a person rather than just a mother. "I think I want to travel," I told him. "See some things, take some classes, maybe learn who I am when I'm not taking care of everyone else." "That sounds good, Mom. That sounds really good." He paused. "I'm sorry I wasn't around more. I was so focused on getting away that I didn't think about what I was leaving you with. You were living your life. That's what you're supposed to do." "Yeah, but I could have called more, visited more, made sure you were okay." "I'm okay now," I said, and I meant it. October brought the reckoning I'd been both dreading and anticipating. Samantha showed up at my house on a Saturday morning in early October. No warning, no call ahead. Just knocked on my door, looking exhausted and real in a way her content had never been. Her hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail. No makeup, jeans and a plain sweatshirt. She looked young and vulnerable, and nothing like the polished influencer she'd been. "Can I come in?" she asked. I considered saying no, making her feel what it was like to be shut out, dismissed, turned away. But curiosity won, the way it always did with her. I opened the door wider. We sat in my living room, the one with the tragic couch. She looked around like she was seeing it for the first time. Maybe she was. Maybe she'd never really looked before, too busy composing shots in her head. "I lost everything," she said finally. "My followers, my sponsorships, my whole identity. James and I are separated. His family won't speak to me. Your revenge worked. Are you happy now?" "This wasn't revenge," I said carefully. "Revenge would have been personal. This was just me stepping back and letting you face reality." "That's semantics." "No, it's the truth. You built your life on my money and other people's trust. When I took away the money and you broke the trust, everything collapsed. That's not my fault. That's consequences." She was quiet for a long time. Outside, leaves were falling from the oak tree in my front yard. The same tree I'd planted when she was 5, when she'd wanted a climbing tree like her friend down the street had. I'd dug the hole myself, planted it carefully, watered it religiously until it took root. "I don't know how to fix this," she said, and for the first time in years, she sounded like my daughter instead of an influencer. "Start by being honest. With yourself, with the people around you. Stop performing and start living." I poured us both tea, the ritual familiar and strange at once. "And maybe get therapy. You need to figure out why you needed strangers' approval more than your own mother's." "I've already started therapy," she said. 3 sessions so far. My therapist says I have narcissistic tendencies and a validation addiction." "How does that feel, hearing that?" "Terrible. Like I'm broken. Like everything I thought I was is a lie." She wrapped her hands around the tea mug. "But also relieving. Like at least now I know what's wrong. There's a name for it." "You're not broken," I said. "You're human, flawed and struggling like everyone else. The difference is you're finally admitting it." "Do you hate me?" The question hung in the air between us. I thought about it, really thought about it. Did I hate my daughter? The girl I'd raised, the woman she'd become, the stranger sitting on my couch drinking tea? "No," I said finally. "I don't hate you. I'm disappointed in you. I'm hurt by you. But hate? That takes more energy than you're worth right now." She flinched like I'd slapped her. Good. She needed to feel something real. "That's fair," she said quietly. "That's more than fair." We sat in silence for a while, drinking our tea. The clock on my wall ticked steadily. Through the window, I could see my neighbor walking his dog, normal life continuing regardless of our drama. "Can I ask you something?" Samantha said eventually. "Go ahead." "When did you decide to do it? To take everything down?" I thought back to that moment in my living room 6 months ago, reading her blog post about me. The shift that had happened inside me. When I realized that you saw me as content instead of as your mother. When I understood that I'd sacrificed everything to raise you. And you'd turned around and sacrificed me for likes. I'm sorry. I know you are. But sorry doesn't fix it. Sorry is just a word. What matters is what you do now. November came with cold rain and a strange sense of peace I hadn't expected. I'd started the travel planning David and I had talked about. Spain in the spring, maybe. Or Greece. Somewhere old and beautiful, where nobody knew me as anyone's mother or victim or villain. Just another tourist with a camera and comfortable walking shoes. I'd also started writing. Not a blog, nothing public, just my story. This story, the silent years and the loud ending. The satisfaction and the cost. Maybe someday I'd do something with it. Or maybe it was just for me. Proof that I'd existed beyond the roles other people had assigned me. Jennifer, the ethics blogger who'd helped expose Samantha's practices, reached out to interview me. She wanted to write about the financial abuse angle, how children sometimes exploit parents without realizing its exploitation. How social media had created new ways for family dysfunction to manifest. I declined. My story wasn't content, it was mine. I'd watched Samantha turn her life into content, watched it destroy her from the inside out, I wasn't going to make the same mistake, but I did start following some of Jennifer's work more closely. She was building something real, a platform about authenticity that actually practiced what it preached. Small audience maybe, but genuine. The kind of thing I could respect. The kind of thing that made a difference without requiring millions of followers. Patricia's son got a better job at a coffee roaster downtown, one that valued him and paid fairly. He sent me a thank you card for helping expose the conditions at James's cafes. "You probably saved someone from getting seriously sick," he wrote. "The walk-in cooler was getting worse every week. It was only a matter of time before something really bad happened." I put the card on my refrigerator next to the outdated school photos of my kids. Reminders of who they were, who they became, who they might still be. Not as inspiration or condemnation, just as documentation. This happened. These people existed. This was real. I also started an art class at the community center. Watercolors. I'd always wanted to paint, but never had time between working multiple jobs and raising kids. Now I had time. Now I had the luxury of learning something just because I wanted to, not because it would benefit anyone else. I was terrible at it at first. My trees looked like blobs. My skies were muddy. My flowers were unrecognizable. But the instructor, an older woman named Helen, was patient. "Art isn't about perfection," she said. "It's about expression, about putting something inside you onto paper, even if it comes out messy." I liked that philosophy. I'd spent my whole life trying to be perfect. The perfect mother, the perfect employee, the perfect martyr. Maybe it was time to be messy. December brought snow and an unexpected shift in my relationship with Samantha. She'd been calling more often, weekly now, sometimes twice a week. Small talk at first, careful conversations about weather and work and nothing important. Then gradually deeper things. She'd tell me about therapy sessions, about realizations she was having, about how different the world looked when you weren't viewing it through a camera lens. I listened but didn't absolve. That wasn't my job anymore. My job was just to be honest, to hold boundaries, to let her figure out who she was without my constant intervention. In mid-December, she called with news. "I'm going back to school," she said. "Business degree, night classes at the community college. It'll take me 3 years, but I want to understand how business actually works. Not the Instagram version, but the real thing." "That's good, Samantha. Really good." I'm also keeping the retail job. The pay isn't great, but I'm learning a lot. About customer service, about managing people, about what actually matters in business. It's not about pretty photos. It's about showing up and doing the work. "Sounds like you're growing up." "Better late than never, right?" She laughed, but it sounded sad. I wasted so much time, so much energy. And for what? Numbers on a screen that meant nothing. "They meant something to you at the time. That's okay. We all chase things that turn out to be empty. The important thing is recognizing it and choosing differently." "When did you get so wise?" "When I stopped worrying about being likable and started worrying about being honest." We talked for another hour that night, about her classes, about my art, about David's upcoming wedding that we'd both been invited to. Normal conversation, mother and daughter talking without the weight of everything that had happened crushing every word. It wasn't forgiveness yet, but it was progress. On Christmas Eve, Samantha asked if she could bring me something. I almost said no. The holiday was complicated enough without adding more emotion to it. But something in her voice made me agree. She arrived with a box. Inside were things I'd given her over the years. The hand-sewn prom dress, carefully preserved in tissue paper. Photo albums from her childhood. The silver bracelet I'd saved for months to buy her for high school graduation. A stuffed rabbit I'd won for her at a carnival when she was 6. "I don't deserve these," she said. "I never appreciated them. I never appreciated you, and I can't keep them knowing that. It feels like stealing." "So you're giving them back?" I didn't touch the box. "That's not how this works, Samantha. You don't get to return the past because it's inconvenient now. I know, I wanted you to know that I see them now. I see what they represent. All the times you sacrificed for me, all the love I took for granted. Tears were running down her face, and she wasn't performing them. They were real, messy, human. I can't change what I did, but I can at least acknowledge what you gave me. I looked at the box, at all those artifacts of motherhood carefully arranged like an exhibit. Part of me wanted to refuse them, to make her keep the evidence of her ungrateful years. But that would be petty, and I was trying to be better than petty. Keep them, I said finally. Not because you deserve them, but because they're part of your history. You can't become someone better by erasing who you were. You have to remember it, learn from it. Are you sure? I'm sure. But Samantha, don't preserve them like museum pieces. Actually look at them sometimes. Remember what it felt like to receive them. Remember that someone loved you enough to sacrifice for you, and then be that person for someone else someday. She nodded, clutching the box. Can I ask you something? Always. Will you ever forgive me, really forgive me? I took my time answering, made her sit with the uncertainty, the way I'd sat with humiliation. Maybe, I said, but forgiveness isn't something you can earn or schedule. It happens when it happens, and pushing for it just makes it take longer. That's fair. Nothing about this is fair, baby, but it's honest, and honest is all I've got left to give you. She left shortly after, taking her box of memories with her. I watched through the window as she loaded it carefully into her car, treating each item with a reverence she'd never shown before. Progress. Slow, painful progress. Christmas Day. I spent alone, and it felt like a gift. No obligations, no performances, no pretending everything was fine when it wasn't. Just me, a frozen lasagna I'd bought on sale, and a movie I'd been meaning to watch for years. David had invited me to Oregon, but I declined. I loved my son, but I needed this time alone. Needed to prove to myself that I could be happy without anyone else defining my happiness. Around noon, my phone buzzed with messages. David sent a photo of him and his partner decorating their tree. Samantha sent a simple text. Merry Christmas, Mom. Thank you for everything, especially for not giving up on me, even when giving up would have been easier. I stared at that message for a long time. She was wrong about one thing. I had given up on her. I'd given up on the daughter I thought I'd raised, the perfect image I'd held in my head. But maybe that wasn't a bad thing. Maybe giving up on the fantasy had allowed me to see the real person underneath. I texted back, Merry Christmas, keep doing the work. Short, not warm but not cold either. Honest. I ate my lasagna and watched my movie and went to bed early. It was the most peaceful Christmas I'd had in years. January brought new routines and new perspectives. The art class I'd started was going well. I'd progressed from blobs to recognizable shapes, from muddy colors to something approaching intentional choices. Helen, the instructor, said I had an interesting eye for composition. You see things other people miss, she explained. The way light hits a window, the shadow under a leaf, the negative space between objects. That's a gift. I didn't feel gifted. I just felt like someone learning to pay attention after a lifetime of being too busy to notice. The class attracted an interesting mix of people, retirees mostly, people like me who'd spent their lives doing other things and were finally pursuing interests they'd deferred. We bonded over our shared mediocrity, over paintings that didn't quite work but represented effort and courage. One woman, Margaret, reminded me uncomfortably of who I might have become if I'd never pushed back. She talked constantly about her children, all successful, all demanding, all treating her like a resource rather than a person. She'd just refinanced her house to help her son start a business that was already failing. He's passionate about it, she said, showing me photos on her phone of a storefront that looked expensive and impractical. I couldn't let him give up on his dream. I wanted to tell her what I'd learned about enabling. about how helping sometimes hurt, about consequences and boundaries and self-respect. But people have to learn their own lessons in their own time. I'd learned that much. Instead, I just said, I hope it works out for him. And I painted my tree, the oak in my front yard, trying to capture the way winter made the branches look like they were reaching for something. The money from the cafe sales was sitting in an investment account, growing slowly and steadily. I didn't need much. My house was paid off, my car was old but functional, my needs were simple. But it was nice knowing I had options, security, the ability to help myself instead of always helping others. I started planning the Spain trip in earnest, booked flights for April, reserved a small apartment in Barcelona for 2 weeks, signed up for walking tours and cooking classes and museum visits. Things I'd never thought I'd do, experiences that were just for me. Patricia was thrilled. You deserve this, she said over coffee one afternoon. After everything you've been through, you deserve to do something just for yourself. I'm still getting used to the idea, I admitted. 53 years of putting everyone else first. It feels selfish. Selfish is good sometimes. Selfish is healthy. Maybe she was right. Maybe I'd confused selflessness with self-erasure for too long. February marked 8 months since the Mother's Day lunch that changed everything. I'd gained weight, not much, maybe 10 pounds, but noticeable. I'd stopped skipping meals to save money I no longer needed to save. Stopped buying the cheapest options automatically. Started eating food I actually enjoyed, rather than food that was just functional. My hair was longer too. I'd stopped cutting it short because it was practical and started growing it out because I wanted to. Small changes, but they felt significant. Physical evidence that I was different now. Samantha had stopped calling as often. Once every 2 weeks, sometimes 3. Not because things were bad between us, but because she was busy building her own life. Working full-time, taking classes, seeing her therapist, learning to exist without needing constant validation from me or anyone else. When we did talk, the conversations were substantial. She told me about her business classes, about learning real accounting and marketing principles that had nothing to do with Instagram algorithms. She told me about a professor who'd challenged her to think differently about success. He said that sustainable business is built on trust and consistency, not on going viral, she said. And I realized I'd built my whole career on the opposite, on moments instead of relationships, on spikes instead of steady growth. Sounds like a smart professor. He is. He's also brutal. He gave me a C on my first paper, said my writing was superficial and focused on aesthetics over substance. I cried in the bathroom for 20 minutes. But you didn't quit. But I didn't quit, she agreed. I rewrote it, got a B+ on the revision, and I learned more from that than from all the positive comments I ever got online. I was proud of her, though I was careful about how much I showed it. She needed to learn to be proud of herself without needing my approval to validate it. James had moved on, according to Patricia's network of neighborhood gossips. He was dating someone new, a woman who worked at his father-in-law's plumbing company, someone practical and uninterested in social media, someone who, by all accounts, called him out when he was being lazy or entitled. Good for him, I said when Patricia told me, and I meant it. I'd never wanted to destroy James personally. I'd just wanted him to face consequences and grow from them. If he was doing that, then my work was done. His parents had sent me a Christmas card, a small gesture but meaningful. Inside, his mother had written, "Thank you for being honest when we couldn't be. James is becoming the man we always hoped he'd be." I'd put that card on my refrigerator too, next to Patricia's son's thank you note and my kids' old school photos. Documentation of change, of growth, of people learning to be better. March brought the first hints of spring and an unexpected visitor. Jennifer, the ethics blogger, showed up at my door on a rainy Tuesday afternoon. I hadn't heard from her since declining her interview request months ago. She looked nervous, clutching a folder and an umbrella. "I'm sorry to show up unannounced," she said, "but I wanted to talk to you in person. Can I come in?" I let her in, made coffee, waited for her pitch. She'd probably found a new angle, a new way to turn my story into content. But I was wrong. "I'm not here about an interview," she said, setting the folder on my kitchen table. "I'm here to show you something. And to apologize." Inside the folder were printouts of blog posts and articles, all about me, about the vindictive mother who destroyed her daughter's influencer career, about the bitter woman who couldn't handle her daughter's success, about how I was jealous and controlling and abusive. Samantha hadn't written them, but her former followers had, her former friends had, people who'd never met me but felt entitled to judge me based on her carefully curated victimhood narrative. "These started appearing about a month ago," Jennifer said. "Samantha gave an interview to another blogger. I don't think she meant for it to go this way, but she talked about what happened between you two, and people took her story and ran with it, made you the villain." I read through the articles. The comments were worse. Hundreds of people calling me names, speculating about my mental health, suggesting I should be investigated for elder abuse in reverse. The irony would have been funny if it wasn't so disturbing. "Why are you showing me this?" I asked. "Because I'm going to write a response," Jennifer said. "A piece about financial exploitation within families, about how parents can be victimized by adult children without anyone recognizing it as abuse. I'm going to explain what really happened, with documentation and context." "I told you I didn't want to be part of your content." "I know, and I'll respect that. I won't use your name or identifying details. But I can't let this narrative stand unchallenged. These people are crucifying you based on incomplete information, and that's not right." I thought about it, about fighting back against strangers on the internet who'd already made up their minds, about adding more fuel to a fire I thought was dying out. "Do what you think is right," I said finally. "But leave me out of it. I don't need vindication from strangers. The people who matter know the truth." She looked disappointed but nodded. "Fair enough. But Nina, for what it's worth, I think you did the right thing. Not the easy thing, but the right thing. And I'm sorry people are turning you into a villain for it." After she left, I sat with those articles for a long time. Read the comments, the speculation, the amateur psychology. People who knew nothing about my life explaining everything wrong with me. And then I threw them all away. They didn't matter. Those people didn't matter. Their opinions were based on fiction, on a narrative they'd constructed from fragments and assumptions. I knew the truth. My children knew the truth. That was enough. April arrived with my departure date for Spain and a sense of completion I hadn't expected. I'd packed light, clothes, art supplies, a journal, my phone charger. I'd arranged for Patricia to check on my house and water my plants. I'd updated my will, just in case, leaving everything split equally between David and Samantha, because I wasn't going to hold a grudge against her forever, in life or after. The night before my flight, both my children called, David first. "Have a great trip, Mum. Send photos, not of yourself, I know you hate that, but of the places, the art, the things that make you happy." "I will. Thank you for checking on me. Thank you for finally doing something for yourself. I'm proud of you." Those words hit harder than I expected. My son was proud of me. Not for sacrificing, not for enabling, but for choosing myself. Then Samantha called. Her voice was different now, calmer, more grounded. Therapy and real work and actual consequences had changed her in ways I was still discovering. "Mum, I heard you're leaving tomorrow. Can I come say goodbye?" "It's late, sweetheart. Please, I need to tell you something in person." She arrived 20 minutes later, looking nervous and determined. We sat on my porch even though it was cold, watching the streetlights flicker on and the neighbors come home from work. "I've been sober for 90 days, she said abruptly. I turned to look at her, confused. Sober from what? Validation, attention, the high of going viral. She laughed shakily. My therapist says I was addicted to engagement metrics the way some people are addicted to gambling. Every like was a hit. Every comment was reinforcement. The dopamine rush of notifications was literally changing my brain chemistry. That must have been exhausting. It was. It is. I deleted all my social media apps 2 months ago, even my personal accounts. Just gone. And the first few weeks were hell. I kept reaching for my phone every few minutes, phantom checking for notifications that weren't there. But you got through it. I'm getting through it. Present tense. It's not over. I still want to document things sometimes, still want to perform. But I'm learning to just experience moments, instead of immediately thinking about how to package them for an audience. That's real growth, Samantha. I wanted to tell you something else, she said, her voice shaking slightly. I gave that interview Jennifer told you about, the one where people are calling you abusive. I didn't mean for it to go that way. I was trying to take responsibility, to explain what I'd learned, but the interviewer kept pushing me to talk about your role. And I let her. I let her frame you as the bad guy because it was easier than admitting I was the bad guy. I know. You know? Jennifer showed me the articles, the comments, all of it. And you're not angry. I thought about it. Was I angry, hurt, disappointed? No, I said honestly. I'm not angry. Those people don't know me. Their opinions are based on a story, not on truth. And you're young, you're learning. You made a mistake. That's human. I'm going to do another interview, she said. A follow-up. And I'm going to tell the real story this time. About the undisclosed sponsorships, about the money you put into James's business, about how I turned you into content without your consent. All of it. Don't do that for me. I'm not doing it for you. I'm doing it for me. Because I need to own what I did, publicly. The same way I profited from it publicly. I studied my daughter in the porch light. 28 years old now. Still young, still figuring things out, but finally doing it honestly. If that's what you need to do, then do it, I said. But do it because it's right, not because you think it'll fix things between us. Will anything fix things between us? Time, I said simply. Time and consistency. Keep showing up. Keep doing the work. Keep being honest. And eventually, maybe we'll find a new normal. I can do that. She hugged me goodbye. A real hug, not a performance hug. Long and tight and slightly awkward because we were still learning how to be authentic with each other. Have a good trip, Mom, she said. Find whatever you're looking for. Or don't look for anything. Just exist for a while. That's the plan. After she left, I sat on my porch for another hour, watching the sky fade from blue to black. Tomorrow I'd be on a plane to Spain. To museums and beaches and wine I couldn't pronounce. To experiences that were just mine, not filtered through anyone else's needs or expectations. I was 54 years old. I'd spent most of my life being someone's mother, someone's employee, someone's solution. Now I was just going to be Nina, and Nina was enough. Spain was everything I needed, and nothing like I expected. I spent 6 weeks wandering through Barcelona and Madrid and small villages whose names I forgot as soon as I left them. I painted badly and ate well and spoke broken Spanish to patient locals who seemed charmed by my terrible pronunciation. I existed without context, without history, without being anyone's mother or victim or victor. Just another tourist with a camera and comfortable walking shoes, trying to capture light on water and the particular way shadows fell across ancient stone. I met other travelers, a German couple in their 60s who'd sold everything to travel full-time. An Australian woman teaching English abroad who said she'd been running from a bad divorce for 3 years and had finally stopped running and started living. An American man my age named Tom who was recovering from his own family drama. A son who'd stolen his identity and destroyed his credit. A wife who'd sided with the son because family is forever. I told her family is forever, Tom said over wine one evening in Sevilla. But so is identity theft and bankruptcy. She chose wrong. We shared meals and stories and travel tips. We walked through markets and museums. We existed in each other's lives temporarily, without need for permanence or commitment. It was freeing, being undefined, being temporary. I sent David postcards as promised, watercolors I'd painted of churches and plazas and random streets that had caught my eye, simple paintings with simple messages. The light here is different. The wine is cheap and good. I'm learning to be alone without being lonely. I sent Samantha postcards too, not as many, but enough to maintain connection without obligation. A painting of a woman sitting alone at a cafe, just existing. On the back I wrote, "Existing without performing. You were right. It's weird but worth it." She texted back, "Frame that and sell it. You're getting good." I didn't frame it or sell it, but I kept painting, filled 2 sketchbooks with mediocre watercolors that represented effort and courage more than talent. I came home in late May to find my life exactly as I'd left it, which felt like a small miracle. The house was clean, thanks to Patricia. My garden had survived. The oak tree was fully leafed now, providing shade across my front yard. Everything was the same, but I was different, more settled, more certain of who I was when nobody was watching. I'd expected to feel transformed, changed, but I just felt like myself, which was perhaps the biggest transformation of all. For the first time in decades, being myself felt like enough. David called to welcome me home. "How was it?" "Good, really good. I think I might go back next year, maybe try Portugal or Italy." "Look at you, becoming a world traveler." "More like a woman who finally has time to do things she wants to do." Samantha sent a text. "Welcome home. Coffee sometime if you want. No pressure." I waited 2 days to respond, not to punish her, but because I needed to settle back into my life before adding complications. When I did respond, I kept it simple. "Next week. Tuesday afternoon if you're free." We met at a coffee shop near her apartment. Not one of James's old places. Those were all sandwich shops now, successfully rebranded and thriving under new ownership. This was a small, independent place, unpretentious and comfortable. Samantha looked different, healthier, more solid. Her hair was natural brown instead of highlighted blonde. She wore minimal makeup, jeans and a sweater instead of carefully curated outfits. "You look good," I said. "I feel good. Real, you know, like I'm actually living my life instead of staging it." We talked for 2 hours, about her classes. She was getting straight A's now, finally applying herself. About her job, she'd been promoted again, was training new employees, discovering she was good at mentoring when she wasn't trying to use people. About her therapy. She was down to once a week, working on maintenance rather than crisis management. "I did the follow-up interview," she said eventually. "The one where I told the real story. It went live last week." "I didn't see it." "I know. I didn't send it to you because I didn't want you to feel obligated to read it, but it's out there if you ever want to." "Did it help, doing it?" "Yeah, it did. Not because people forgave me or changed their minds, most of them didn't, but because I needed to own it publicly, to stop hiding behind victimhood and admit I was the problem. That takes courage. Or maybe just exhaustion. I was tired of lying, even to myself. We finished our coffee and walked through the neighborhood. Spring in full bloom, flowers everywhere, life renewing itself the way it always did. We didn't hug goodbye, but we smiled at each other. Real smiles, awkward and genuine and enough. Summer came with heat and a decision about what came next. I'd been home 2 months, falling back into routines, painting, gardening, teaching my weekly art class at the community center, having occasional coffee with Patricia, speaking with David weekly and Samantha every 2 weeks. a quiet life that felt earned rather than default. But something was missing. Purpose, maybe. Or just the next chapter. I'd spent 8 months dismantling my children's fake lives and rebuilding my own real one. But now what? What did I want beyond survival and independence? I started volunteering at a women's shelter downtown. Not as a counselor, I wasn't qualified for that, but as someone who ran practical workshops, budgeting, resume writing, how to recognize financial manipulation in relationships. The women there had stories that made mine look simple: abusive partners, controlling families, systems designed to keep them dependent and powerless. But they were fighting back, learning, building strength from wreckage. I saw myself in them, saw the woman I'd been before I pushed back, saw the woman I might have remained if I'd never gotten angry enough to act. "You're good at this," the shelter director told me after my 3rd session. "You speak their language. You've been where they are." "I've been adjacent to where they are," I corrected. My situation was different. Was it? Someone who loved you treated you badly. You felt powerless to stop it. You sacrificed yourself trying to keep the peace. That's their story too, just with different details. Maybe she was right. Maybe abuse came in many forms, and financial emotional manipulation by adult children was just one variety of many. I kept volunteering, every Thursday afternoon. It gave me purpose beyond myself, connection beyond my immediate circle. It reminded me that my story wasn't unique or special, just one version of a universal theme of power and powerlessness, of learning to fight back. August brought unexpected closure from an unexpected source. James showed up at my house on a Saturday morning. I almost didn't answer the door. We had nothing left to say to each other. But curiosity won again, the way it always seemed to with my children and their partners. He looked different. Leaner, more tired, but somehow more present. Work-roughened hands, sun-weathered skin. The veneer of performative success had been stripped away, leaving something harder and more honest underneath. "Can we talk?" he asked. "Just for a few minutes. I promise I'm not here to ask for anything." We sat on my porch, the same place I'd sat with Samantha months ago. The oak tree provided shade, filtered light through leaves creating patterns on the wooden boards. "I wanted to apologize," he said. "Really apologize, not just words. I'm sorry for using your money without appreciating it, for enabling Samantha's worst impulses, for building a business on lies and your credit, for treating you like a resource instead of a person. Okay. I also wanted you to know I've paid back every cent you put into the cafes. It took all my savings and I'm still working 2 jobs, but the debt's clear. Not legally. I know the sale covered that, but ethically, I needed to make it right." That surprised me. The sale had covered the loans plus a profit. He didn't owe me anything legally. But ethically? Maybe he was right. "That was decent of you," I said carefully. "You didn't have to do that." "I did, though, not for you, though you deserved it. For me, I needed to prove to myself that I could do something hard without taking shortcuts." We sat in silence for a moment. A car drove past. Someone's dog barked down the street, normal life continuing while we tried to make peace with history. "How's Samantha?" he asked eventually. "She won't really talk to me anymore." "She's working, going to school, seeing her therapist, learning to be real instead of performing." "Good, that's good." He looked down at his hands, calloused now from actual work. We were never really partners, you know. We were just 2 narcissists performing a partnership for an audience. Neither of us saw the other as a real person. That's very self-aware. Therapy's expensive but effective. He smiled slightly, echoing Samantha's words. Maybe they'd both found the same truth in different places. We talked for another 20 minutes. About his job at the plumbing company. About how physical labor was teaching him things business school never had. About his new girlfriend who didn't use social media and didn't care about his past. About his parents, who'd forgiven him but held him to higher standards now. When he left, I felt lighter. Not because I'd forgiven him. Forgiveness was still complicated, but because his apology hadn't required anything from me. He'd done the work himself, paid his debts himself, grown himself. That's all I'd wanted from either of them. September brought a full year of distance from the Mother's Day lunch that had changed everything. A year since I'd handed Samantha that envelope and walked out of the restaurant. A year since I'd stopped being a victim and started being an agent of consequences. A year of rebuilding, learning, growing. I'd gained 15 pounds total now. My hair was long enough to pull back in a ponytail. I'd started wearing colours instead of neutrals, paintings instead of photographs on my walls, jewellery I'd bought for myself instead of gifts from others. Small changes, visual evidence of internal shifts. Samantha called on the anniversary. "It's been a year," she said unnecessarily, "since everything fell apart." "Since everything changed," I corrected. "Yeah, changed." She was quiet for a moment. "I wanted to thank you. I know that sounds insane, thanking someone for destroying your life. But you didn't destroy my life. You destroyed my delusion. There's a difference." "You're welcome," I said, and meant it. "Are we okay? I mean, I know we're not fully okay, but are we okay enough?" I thought about it, really thought about it. Were we okay? Could we ever be fully okay again? "We're getting there," I said finally. "I think we're both different people now. Better people. And those better people are learning to build a better relationship. I can live with that. So can I." We talked for a while longer, about nothing important, about David's upcoming visit, about my plans to return to Spain in the spring, about her final semester of classes. Normal conversation between a mother and daughter who were learning to be normal. After we hung up, I sat on my porch with tea and thought about the year that had passed, about the anger that had fueled my revenge, about the satisfaction of watching consequences unfold, about the slow rebuilding of relationships I'd thought were destroyed forever. Had it been worth it? The confrontation, the destruction, the pain I'd caused and received? Yes. Absolutely yes. Because the alternative was continuing to be diminished, continuing to sacrifice myself for people who saw me as a punchline and a resource, continuing to enable dysfunction in the name of love. I'd rather be respected than liked. I'd rather be honest than comfortable. I'd rather be alone than be someone's joke. And I wasn't alone anymore anyway. I had Patricia's friendship, earned through honesty. I had David's respect, earned through boundaries. I had Samantha's hard-won growth, earned through consequences. I had my art students, my volunteer work, my own growing sense of self. I had built a life that was entirely mine, and it was enough. Christmas came again, marking more than a year since the beginning of my new life. This time, David convinced me to come to Oregon, and Samantha came too. We spent a week together, the three of us navigating dynamics that were still complicated but no longer toxic. There were difficult moments, old patterns trying to reassert themselves, Samantha apologizing too much, me being too distant, David trying too hard to make everyone comfortable. But we caught ourselves, corrected course, tried again. On Christmas Eve, we went for a walk together, just the three of us, through David's neighborhood. The houses were decorated with lights, families visible through windows, living their own complicated lives. "Do you think we'll ever be normal?" Samantha asked. "We're already normal," David said. "Normal families are messy. It's the fake families that look perfect." "When did you get so wise?" I asked. "I learned from watching both of you, from watching Mom set boundaries and stick to them, from watching Sam do the hard work of changing herself. You're both kind of amazing." We walked in silence for a while. The night was cold but clear, stars visible between the clouds. "I'm sorry I wasn't around more," David said eventually. "When everything was happening, I should have been there." "You were living your life," I said. "That's what you're supposed to do. I don't want my children sacrificing for me. I want you building your own happiness." "Is that what you're doing now?" Samantha asked. Building your own happiness? I'm trying, still learning. But yes, I think so. Good, you deserve it. We made it to Christmas morning without major conflict. David cooked breakfast while his partner decorated the table. Samantha helped, moving comfortably in someone else's kitchen. I watched them from the couch, my children, both finally becoming themselves. We exchanged gifts, simple things, thoughtful things. David gave me a new set of watercolors, professional grade. For Spain, he said. Samantha gave me a framed photo she'd taken, the oak tree in my front yard in full summer foliage, strong and reaching and alive. On the back, she'd written, "Thank you for teaching me that growth requires pruning." I gave her a watercolor I'd painted of that same tree in winter, bare branches against sky. Below it, I'd painted small buds forming, spring coming despite the cold. For second chances, I'd written on the back. She cried. Real tears, not performed ones. I'll treasure this, always. We didn't have a movie moment, didn't hug it out or have a big emotional scene. We just acknowledged the gifts, the symbolism, the slow progress we were making, and that was enough. That night, after everyone had gone to bed, I stood on David's porch looking at the stars, thinking about the past year, about revenge and consequences and reconstruction, about the woman I'd been and the woman I was becoming. Samantha found me there, wrapped in a blanket, looking small and young and vulnerable. "Thank you," she said quietly. "For what?" "For not giving up on me, even when I gave you every reason to, for fighting back instead of just fading away, for showing me that love sometimes looks like consequences. You're welcome, though I mostly did it for me. I know, that's why it worked. That's why it mattered." She stood beside me, and we watched the stars together, mother and daughter, imperfect and scarred and still learning. The revenge was complete, the lessons delivered, the consequences faced. But more importantly, something new had grown in the wreckage, not the relationship we'd had before, but something harder earned and more honest. I destroyed their fake world so they could build real ones. I'd stopped enabling so they could start growing. I'd chosen myself so they could learn to respect boundaries. And it had worked. Slowly, painfully, but it had worked. I was 54 years old. I had art to create, places to visit, work that mattered, relationships that were real. Samantha was 28, building an authentic life from the ruins of her fake empire. David was thriving, confident, whole. We were all works in progress. But at least now we were honest works in progress, living real lives instead of performed ones. We stood on that porch until the cold drove us inside. Then we went to bed, in separate rooms, separate lives that occasionally intersected with honesty and effort and hope. And that was enough. After everything, it was finally enough.